Hello and welcome to 9394, a music podcast. I hope you're doing well today. I'm doing fine. I know I always say that I'm extra excited about every episode that I do, and I guess it's always true. I'm never lying. But I am extra excited today, and I have two good reasons. One being that I finally got my friend Steve Laskowski to come on the show. I've been wanting him to be on for some time, and he has come on to talk about an album that means a lot to him, an artist that means a lot to him, Billy Joel and his 1993 album, River of Dreams. On top of that, there was a good month or so where I thought that this episode was lost because I had accidentally kind of corrupted the file or something, and the file existed, but there was no audio. And then lo and behold, a month or so later, I just stumbled across a backed up file that I kept in a different spot than I keep my other backed up files, because this is more than you need to know, but I had backed up files, but the backed up files were also corrupted, but I still had one more extra file backed up somewhere else that I just kind of was like, oh great, here it is. This is our conversation. So here it is. You get to listen to it. I hope you like it.
Shades of gray wherever I go. The more I find out, the less that I know. Black and white is how it should be. But shades of gray are the colors I see. Ba 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 da. Ba 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 da.
Steve!
Hey, Travis, how are you?
Floyd, hello. Welcome.
Good to see you.
Thanks for coming to my home to talk about this album. What album we're here to talk about today?
River of Dreams by the one and only Billy Joel.
Bill Joel. I posted about Bill Joel and my dad on Facebook, and my dad got angry with me.
I saw that.
No one calls him that. I'm like, I call him that.
Say it out loud. I think you said say it out loud or something like that. It doesn't
Bill
sound
Joel.
right.
It does. It does to me. So, this is your first time on the podcast. I'm very excited to have you on. I feel like this is a big get for me, because I know that you're like, I've had you on Cinema 9 before.
Yes.
And you did great on that, but I think you're maybe more comfortable talking about movies than music generally, am I right?
No, I'm just uncomfortable at all these type of things.
Fair enough.
No, I just, especially what we're talking about with being Billy Joel, I feel like there's a lot to unpack there, and I certainly do poorly for Billy Joel, so
Yeah.
That's one of the hard things, but I'm very excited to be here. This is going to be great.
Good, yeah. Yeah, you want to like do them service, right? You want to do them honor.
Which is so silly, because it's not like they're ever going to hear it, but...
That's for you more than it's for them, right?
Yeah.
Right, no, I get it, because I still haven't done an Afghan Wigs episode, and part of me's like, I'm never going to be able to achieve what I want to for Greg.
Never have doubts. Save my soul from arrogant men and all the causes therefore. I won't be righteous again. I'm not that sure anymore. Shades of gray are all that I find.
But let's begin at the beginning. We always start with how we know one another at my podcast when I have a new guest on. And anyone listening, by the way, if you're hearing panting and breathing, that's not me being excited to see Steve. That's Scruffy. He's all over him, and Mara is kind of sleeping behind him and being chill. But yeah, how do you and I know one another, Steve?
Well, actually through Jim Takis, I believe. You know, we went to the same school district, Heartland, and I didn't really get to know you until, gosh, I think after we graduated.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we crossed paths several times, but we didn't really know each other very well.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly there was a time, it was probably early morning at Jim Takis' house, and you were at the table. I was always up late, and you were up. I think drugs had to do with some of it, but we had a really good conversation. It was our first one-on-one conversation. So
I remember that as well. Yeah, I remember that. That would be like, that was when we became friends ourselves. We weren't just like, we had been hanging out for at least months prior to that.
Absolutely.
But it was like through Jim and other friends, Eric Brandstrom and Chad. But I remember that conversation as well because it was just like, that was kind of a turning point. The first time I saw you, the first time I took notice of you, which this is one of those high school things that you have not been able to live down. There was a stage production of It's a Wonderful Life. And anybody who's seen that movie remembers that Mr. Potter is pushed around by some goon, but no one gives a shit about the goon. But you played the goon and somehow stole the whole fucking show. And I remember being like, who is this guy playing the goon? He's hilarious. You did nothing. Like, you just kind of stood around and like made a face, and it was so funny.
I remember it was actually Mr. Merrill, if you remember him, of all times. Because it was a background character, and you just pushed
a wheel. Yeah,
you just pushed a wheelchair. That's all you did. But he's like, I want you to make this part into something. And I remember I developed this crazy maniacal laugh.
That's right.
And so that was a lot of fun. I mean, it still wasn't much of a part, but just being goonish and making that laugh was pretty funny.
And then flash forward a few years, we started hanging out together. I remember that night having that long conversation, and like most of the best conversations I've had in my life, I can't remember any details about it, you know, but I do remember that at the end of the evening, I just kind of looked at you and went, you know, like, that's a lovely conversation. I've been on acid this whole time. Which,
I didn't know if you wanted to bring up the acid
part. It's fine at this point. Like, so long as it's not, you know, generally speaking, I feel like the statute of limitations is up on that kind of stuff. And I was doing a lot at that time. So, like, it didn't surprise me that you couldn't tell a big difference in my behavior.
Well, I was
so used to it at the time.
That was the funny part. You told me that, and I'm thinking, I'm dead sober, and I had no idea. So I probably didn't bode well for me and my knowledge, but I had no experience with those type of drugs, and I was completely clueless. So
now I want to ask you how you got into this album and how you got into Billy Joel, and then I will talk about how I got into this album and Billy Joel, which has a lot to do with you. But how did you get into Billy Joel?
I'll try to. You might have to edit this down. But really, going back, I moved from Royal Oak to Heartland area back between 4th and 5th grade. So 5th grade is when I moved here, and this is important for context here. I literally moved in my house the day before school started.
Okay.
So I moved into a brand new district, and that was when I was going into 5th grade, and it was in 89. It was kind of rough because I literally showed up. I didn't even know my house yet. I didn't know my room. And I went to bed and then woke up and went to school.
Yeah, you're 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah, and it was such a weird dynamic, too, because we walked to school. In Royal Oak, we walked about a mile to and from school every day. And this is the first time riding a bus.
Oh, okay.
And so I knew my bus stop was kind of near my house. But getting off the bus, I got off at the wrong stop. And I didn't know where I was or anyone around. And God, it was a terrible memory. And that's how pretty much my year went. That whole year in 5th grade was like that. How Billy Joel gets into this is I remember the teachers in 5th grade, they all pulled an entire 5th grade class together. And there was probably 3 or 4 different classes. And they pulled us all into one room.
I have an idea I know where you're going with this.
And they wanted us to hear a song. And they played that song, and it was We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel.
Maybe his biggest hit, maybe.
Yeah, arguably. Really. And I think because there's so much education packed in there, I think the teachers got excited. They were almost giddy.
Listen, the kids are going to love it. The kids love Bill Joel.
So I remember hearing that and not really. I just remember seeing their excitement, which made me think, oh, maybe I should be excited about this. Fast forward, to a little bit later in time when the whole BMG and Columbia House came out. I remember, okay, I got to get some albums here. And I did not know music. I didn't know music at all. But I remember, and I started on the early side because I did have an older brother who started doing it. So I don't remember exactly when I started, but it was in middle school. And I got a bunch of tapes, 2 of which were Stormfront by Billy Joel, which had We Didn't Start the Fire, and Billy Joel's Greatest Hits, Volume 1 and 2.
Okay.
Later, I did end up rebuying the CD.
Yes. Okay. I know you had that CD because it factors into my story. But continue.
Okay. So I had that. The weird part about that is there's some variance between the tape and the CD, which I couldn't tell you now. But at the time, I remember thinking, okay, this song isn't on there, and this song's... I thought that was interesting.
That's funny, yeah.
But I remember sitting in my bedroom and just listening to, like, say, We Didn't Start the Fire, and trying to, listen to a little bit, looking at the lyric sheet, trying to sing along, and then stopping and rewinding and doing that over and over and over again until I got the song pretty much down. And I did that with a lot of his songs. And that actually kind of got me through a lot of the awkwardness of that stage in my life where I was in a shell and didn't have a lot of friends yet and missing my friends that I had. So that's kind of how I got involved with Billy Joel.
Some days when I'm far away in a lonely room in a cold seclusion. Some nights when I'm wound so tight there is no release, there is no solution. In hell there's a big hotel where the bar just closed and the windows never open. No phone so you can't call home, and the TV works but the clicker is broken.
So when this album came out, you were just a big enough fan. Did you buy the album when it came out?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
Certainly did. And to be honest, going back, I was so disappointed in the album at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why. I didn't know what I expected to hear, but it wasn't that.
Yeah.
And I remember kind of being not as enthused by it. But I still listen to it. I still, even going back and listening to it again here, because it's been a long time since I've really listened to the album.
Yeah.
Going back and re-listening to it, I just know all the words.
Yeah.
So I had to have listened to it enough to get all the words down.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did. So I know we're going to dive in a little deeper here, but man, it's a very different album than I remember.
I agree with that 100% and have a lot to say on that as well. Now, I got into Billy Joel because my dad owned Stormfront on CD, so I had that in the house. But even before that, my mom had Glass Houses on cassette and one or two others. So it was like around, you know what I mean? And you always heard the singles and that kind of stuff. So we always felt like he was part of my life. And I liked him okay, but as I got older, I went through like the kind of inchoate stage of like all indie is cool. Then I got really more myopic about punk rock and then hardcore and screamo and all that kind of stuff. It was a lot more like, this is what I listened to in my late teens, early 20s. And so when I was living in Florida, I was like 20 years old, and I was very much in screamo mode. And I came up to Michigan to visit over Christmas break. And I was hanging out at our friend's house, and there was some guy there who I have no idea who this dude was. I have no idea. I have no recollection of his name, how he got to be there, but he had a fucking eyedropper, like a Visine type dropper, filled with acid. So I'm sorry this is such a hallucinogen-laden episode. No one listening.
Who knew Billy Joel?
But this dude, like, I've got Unity tattooed on my wrist, right? And he had, like, I guess he was a big Operation Ivy fan. He had their logo tattooed on him, and he just thought that we were, like, connected or whatever, and just was, like, dumping acid, like, every now and then, just, like, coming, like, hey, open your mouth. I'm like, okay. And just, like, drop a bunch down my mouth. So, like, I tripped for, I don't know, 24, 30 hours, something like that. And at the end of that, I needed to go meet a family friend, and I didn't have the vehicle to do it. I don't know if I told you that I had been doing acid for like 24, 30 hours or not. I'd like to say that I did, and that I got a little bit of sleep, I think. I think I got a little bit of sleep. I literally was sober, but I was like fresh off a binge, an acid binge, and you let me borrow your car, and you didn't have a lot of CDs. And the only thing in there that you may have even been in the CD player, was I think the second disc of Billy Joel's Greatest Hits.
Okay.
I was like, okay, there's something in here, I'm sure. And I'm listening to it. I remember driving to go meet my friend and hearing Scenes from an Italian Restaurant for what felt like the first time. And I was like ready to fucking crash the car. I was so excited. I was like, this is incredible. And this still is, The songwriting, and just completely, like, around that same time in my life, another friend in Florida got me into Journey. Right about the time that, like, the Sopranos episode aired and Don't Stop Believing kind of came back into our consciousness. I got back into Journey around then. I can't remember before or after. And actually, it would have been a little bit before that. The Sopranos were still on. But at any rate, like, between Billy Joel and Journey, I kind of started breaking out of, like, just being, okay, I only listen to punk rock and, like, hardcore, you know what I mean? And so I had you in part to thank for that. So I have a good memory of driving your car and rocking out to that song over and over again.
Well, that song, that's one of the epic songs right there. Mm-hmm. It's three different acts of interludes, if you will, kind of all put together.
The Dixieland Breakdown.
Yeah.
And so this album, I did the same thing as you, where, like, I know I listened to it back in the day a little bit, and then I listened to it kind of periodically around that time. and went, this kind of sucks, but like I still respected it because it's Billy Joel. And I'm in this Facebook group, and it's like a indie rock Facebook group, and about twice a year, sometimes once a year, like all 500 to 600 members will assemble like their top 50 albums of any given year, and everybody submits, and there's like a ranking system. The guy who runs the group like will chart it all out, and we try to like determine like what is this group's top 200 albums or whatever.
Okay.
So there's 600 people, almost 600 people in this group, and we all submit our votes. One motherfucker chose this album, and that was me. In my top 50. Yeah, I didn't make it my top 10, but I put it in my top 50. And so the guy that runs the group, like, posted a thing like, hey, one person voted for this album. And everybody in this group jumped on me. You would think I was like, hey, Mein Kampf is a good read. I mean, like, they fucking jumped on me, dude. I mean, there was a couple dudes that defended the album, including the guy that actually like, runs the group and posted it. But I was like, hey, you know, this isn't my favorite album. It's not a perfect album, but it's Billy Joel. If I'm going to name the 50 best albums from 1993, I'm going to include it. And everybody was like, okay, you're fucking crazy. I had one guy fucking compare me to a pedophile for...
What?
Yeah, I'm going to cut that out probably. But literally, like, people were like unhinged in their comparisons and fury over Billy Joel. And I'm like, okay, I don't get it. And I actually hadn't listened to that album in a while, even though I chose it. And then you chose it, and I've started listening to it over the past couple weeks, and I'll be goddamned if it's not maybe one of the best Billy Joel albums.
It's damn good. I mean, first off, let's go back. The album hit 5 times platinum in the U.S.
That's a good point.
With 5 million. So for them to have so much vitriol, I did not use that word
vitriol.
Right? Vitriol. There we go.
Yeah.
It's kind of silly to me. But I do not remember originally, and maybe it's because I didn't have very much music knowledge. This album is so bluesy. I really dug it. I mean, listening back to it and listening to it, I'm like, there is a lot more to this album than I remember at all.
That's the same for me. It's a lot more complex and varied than I remember. But let's start at the beginning. What is your favorite song?
Oh, you know, like everyone, I have a hard time with that because it picks on the day. So I have 2 or 3, and I figured I got to pick one for today.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 2,000 Years.
In the beginning, there was the cold and the night. Prophets and angels gave us the fire and the light. Man was triumphant, armed with the faith and the will. But even the darkest ages couldn't kill. Too many kingdoms, many flags on the field, so many battles, so many wounds to be healed. Time is relentless, only true love perseveres. It's been a long time and now I'm with you. After 2,000 years.
I was just singing that when you walked in the door. Yeah.
Right now, I was just listening to the album one quick final time before getting here, just
on the drive
clip
over.
it, so every song.
Mm-hmm.
And that one stuck out to me. I really such an easy-going song, and I think it has a good message. I really like that song.
Is that an accordion going on in that, I think? I believe.
Good question. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'm not as musically inclined as I like to pretend. But I like the artistry behind that song. I like there's different kind of stuff happening in terms of the instruments being played compared to the rest of the album, again, because it's so varied. And then you're on the cusp of the millennia, right, in 1993, and he's reflecting on that. Yeah, it's a really great song. It really is. It's beautiful.
It's great. So, how about you? What's your favorite song?
Look,
You're the host, dude. I don't have to say.
No, it's not that. I'm picking the obvious choice because there's one song that I never doubted one way or the other. I mean, where I have not given this album its fair due and now realize its greatness, there was never a point where I thought that River of Dreams was not an amazing song, like a great Billy Joel song. So that's still my favorite on this album.
Ooh.
It's just so fun and upbeat, and just it makes you feel like I'm in The Lion King, in a good way. It's just a happy, feeling good song. I love it. Still love it.
It's one of those songs where I did not love it, and I think I was comparing it too much to that's in the jungle, the night, and I did not like it. I'm like into all the falsettos and stuff they use.
Yeah.
But obviously now when I listen back, it is so much fun. And then you have the different types of instruments, the percussion going on.
Yeah, there's like the world music kind of influence happening with
and
that
it starts off a little slow, and it gets, he adds in more instruments. And it's a great, great song. For sure.
It's my favorite. It may be the big single from the album, but it's the one that's stuck with me the most. That said, I don't know if it's the best song on the album. It's just my favorite.
Yeah.
So that brings me to the idea of the underrated song on this album. And I could just about be like, well, almost every track is pretty fucking underrated by me, by the country, the world, the universe at large. I think has been underrating this album. But if you had to pick one song as your most underrated on it, which would you pick?
Well, I'm going to pick the one that I have the most fun with. It makes me smile every time. Uh-huh. It's a minor variation.
Right into the blue. Despite how I try to keep fighting, it's a sure shot I'm gonna lose. And I'll tell you why. You think I'm crazy. It's such a sad composition. But can you blame
I think it's just such a fun song. Some of it's a little hokey, I have to say, but I don't know, it just makes me happy. It's
the bluesiest. Yeah. The bluesiest song on the album for sure. One of my few complaints on this album is that there's a little too much guitar on it for a Billy Joel album, but I do think it works pretty well on that song. That song wouldn't work without so much blues guitar happening. And it's a groovy song for sure.
There's one part in that song, it's one little note that makes me cringe. It's when he ends one stanza and he goes, huh, at the end. And every time I'm like, oh, it reminds me of, the movie Falling Down when he squirts the squirt gun at the very end. Like, don't do it.
I've got a moment like that on this album I want to talk about here in a moment too, but I'll say that my most underrated, God, I really went back and forth between two songs, really 3 or 4. I want to talk about a few songs more maybe than the average album because I feel like there's a lot to unpack here. But I'll say that my most underrated track in this album will be Lullaby, Goodnight My Angel.
Good night, my angel, time to close your eyes and save these questions for another day. I think I know what you've been asking me. I think you know what I've been trying to say. I promised I would never leave you, and you should always know. Wherever you may go, no matter where you are, I never will be far away.
Heartbreaking. I mean, like, if I listen to it and I'm not like cleaning or like doing something, if I'm just like driving my car and I'm like listening to that song over the last, I guess, month that we've been getting ready, or maybe longer that we've been getting ready to do this episode, I will cry. It is a heartbreaking song, and it's beautiful because it's a breakup song and about people that are still in love with one another. And you don't get that enough in pop music. You know, you get plenty of fuck you and I'm heartbroken and this is sad and bad and all this. But this is like, hey, we love each other. It didn't work, but we're still really special to each other. And it really makes me think of my most recent ex, which spent 4 years, so it's not that recent. But like, I still have a strong relationship with that person. And it's nice to kind of have that represented in a song.
It is. It's a wonderful song. I love that song too. And that's one you don't hear very often at all. Even at that time, you never heard it. Like you said, a lot of these songs you did not hear out and about. You heard River Dreams, you heard No Man's Land. It's a second single, but other than that, you didn't really hear a lot of this album. That's such a beautiful song.
Yeah.
And it's one of those brainworms that sticks in my head. When I hear it, I hear it for the next month.
Yeah,
it just stays with me.
It's so pretty. I've been walking around like, because I sing to my dogs all the time to whatever song is in my head, so they've been getting lullabied quite a bit to that song. Now, you mentioned No Man's Land.
I've seen those big machines come rolling through the quiet pines. Blue suits of bankers with their Volvos and their Valentines. Give us this day our daily discount outlet merchandise. Raise up a multiplex and we will make a sacrifice. Now we're gonna get the big business. Now we're gonna get the real thing. Everybody's all excited about it. Who remembers when it all began? Out here in No Man's Land.
It's classic Bill. It's so economic in its arguments and its critiques. You know, I love that about Billy Joel. When you listen to songs like Allentown or Moving Out or Easy Money, he's always kind of like on the side of the little guy. Downeaster Alexa, you know what I mean? Like, he's really interested in the injustices of society and how economics factors into that. And that is such a hard critique of suburban whatever the fuck. That song comes so hard. Like, talking about how, like, we're gonna worship the Cineplex and all this shit.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's so, like, these lyrics, if you took them out of that song and put them in front of, like, anybody in my group that was, in that Facebook group that was shitting on Billy Joel, these lyrics are like punk rock. These lyrics are poignant. They are Marxist. They're awesome.
They
I really
are,
really
yeah.
love it.
They come after almost the concrete jungle mentality of we're tearing up everything to build another Cineplex and another strip mall.
Parking lots.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a cool song, and it really rocks. Billy Joel, when he rocks, doesn't always rock, especially around this era. But he really rocks on that song. It's a really good
It
song.
was a great opener for
Yeah.
the album. It
Yeah, it
really
was.
kind of set the mood right off the bat.
Yeah.
So.
What's the least good song, though?
But I have two. And one is not musically related,
Okay.
but Famous Last Words.
Sitting here in Avalon, looking at the pouring rain. Summertime has come and gone, and everybody's home again. Closing down for the season, I found the last of the souvenirs. I can still taste the wedding cake, and it's sweet after all these years. These are the last words I have to say. That's why it takes so long to write.
The reason why I didn't like that song is because even though he denied it at the time, I knew that this was probably going to be his last album.
Oh.
And so it really hated that song because it meant the end of Billy Joel.
But do we even know that for sure? As you were discussing, what happened, 2 days ago, Steve?
Well, they've been putting a couple of teasers out the last, I don't know, a couple weeks or whatever, but he finally just released a brand new single. Came out 2 days ago. Yeah. Turn the Lights Back On.
Please open the door. Nothing is different. We've been here before. Pacing these halls, trying to talk over the silence. And pride sticks out his tongue, laughs at the portrait that we become. Stuck in a frame, unable to change, I was wrong. I'm late, but I'm here right now.
What do you think of it?
It's fantastic.
It's incredible.
I don't want to talk it up or amp it up to people who haven't heard it yet, but I listened to it a couple times, and I tried not to form an opinion when I listened to it the first couple times. And then today I listened to it again a couple more times. Man, that's another one of those songs that it can really tear you up.
Yeah.
If you're not careful.
It's beautiful.
The meaning behind that song.
Did I wait too long to turn the lights back on?
As our friend Eric pointed out to me on Facebook, there has been some other releases since 1993. There was, well, for one, there was the concerto that he did, which is a whole album called Fantasies and Illusions. So it's not like lyrics or singing to it. It's not like a normal Billy Joel album. But he did do a cover of Bob Dylan's To Make You Feel My Love. And he did another song, which I haven't been able to find, for his wife, that was released in 2007. So yeah, I guess that was the last thing that he released up until this new song. But you listen to Famous Last Words, and it sounds pretty clear that he's saying, I'm out of ideas for the time being. Like, I'm checking out. Like, on one hand, like, it's kind of about a relationship, but it's also like he's talking to us. And then you listen to this new song, Turn the Lights Back On. And again, like, it's on one level, he's clearly singing about a relationship, but it really sounds like he's singing to his audience. Have I waited too long to come back to, like, revive this? And like almost every line is like, shit, he's like singing to us.
Yeah, he is. And I thought that was so clever, even with the choice of title.
Yeah.
I mean, Famous Last Words, then Turn the Lights Back On. I mean,
right.
Even though, again, Turn the Lights Back On has nothing to do with that, it does.
Right.
And it's such that's a great song. And I'm really hoping that means there's a new album coming out. And I cannot find any information to confirm that, but I'm really hoping
he's still got it. He definitely still has it. So I could see not liking Famous Last Words because of the impact that it had on you. But for me, there is one clear villain of a song on this album. Straight up villain.
It's probably the one I think.
The second song, Great Wall of China.
Advice is cheap, you can take it from me. Is yours to keep, cause opinions are free.
Is that what you're thinking?
No, not at all. That's interesting. I'm gonna hear it.
Okay, well, let me hear my diatribe, and then I'll hear your second choice. Because for me, this is the reason why everyone hates the album. Now, the choruses of this song and the intro of this song are good. Like, when the song starts, like, you're like, oh, this is cool. And the chorus, like, the Great Wall, it's all good. It's the verses. The verses are terrible. And when it kicks off, there's some woman that comes in and goes, hey, hey! And there's a fucking second song on the album. And it's such a shit song. And I feel like anybody listening, like, if they weren't blown away by No Man's Land, that this would be what sticks out to them. Like, hey, it's so fucking, I'm like, oh, it's nauseating. So that to me is a shit song that I think really impacted people's feelings on the album, because I literally like every other song in this album. What's the one that you were thinking that I was going to say?
Blonde Over Blue.
Not a standout song, but I like it okay.
It's too on the nose for me, I think. I don't know. It's just, to me, it felt like he just needed another song, and musically, it's great. Even some lyrically it is, but it's just, I don't know. I didn't love it.
It's middle of the road. I mean, I like it fine, but like, it's not one of the songs I think about on the album. Now, there is a song on this album I wanted to get your opinion on, that if no one had told me, and I just pressed play on it, and someone said, hey, this is the new single from The Killers, I would have been like, oh, this is, The Killers, this is a good song. What song am I talking about?
Shades of Grey?
It's All About Soul.
It's All About Soul. Really?
Let me play you the beginning of It's All About Soul, and tell me it doesn't sound like fucking...
and takes away my pain. And so far she hasn't run, though I swear she's had her moments. She still believes in miracles, while others cry in vain. It's all about soul. It's all about faith and a deeper devotion.
To me, I feel like that song screams, hey, Billy Joel is a huge influence on the Killers, and I just never picked up on it before.
Wow, yeah. All About Soul is another great song. I do want to circle back a little bit, too, and I hate that phrase, but The Great Wall of China, because there's an interesting story behind that.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if you know, of course it's rumored, but did you read up on Frank Weber or anything?
Oh, Frank Weber is.
Oh, okay. Buckle up.
All right, hit me.
So, Billy Joel was married to Elizabeth Weber, his first wife.
Okay.
She was his manager. Okay? They got divorced, and when they got divorced, he then turned to his ex-brother-in-law, Frank Weber, who became his manager.
Oh.
At this time in Billy's life, he really did not want to deal with money at all. He didn't want to deal with money, he didn't want to think about money.
Extortion? You got an extortion story?
We do. But it came down to he didn't want to be part of it because he felt that if he started thinking about money or caring about money, it would change him in the way he makes his music. He didn't want to he didn't want to be grinding out albums and songs just for money.
Yeah.
So he kept himself distant from that on purpose. And yeah, his brother-in-law ended up extorting millions and millions of dollars from him. I mean, to the tune of about, it varies anywhere between 10 and 30 million.
It's a lot.
And he was starting out businesses with Billy's money.
Oh my God.
Fail and
bag of shit.
Just.
Although I gotta say, like, going with your ex-wife's brother, maybe not the wisest move.
So I don't know why he would do that, and then I don't know why he would. You know, he's like, I learned a big lesson, Billy.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's a lesson you shouldn't have to learn. I mean, the lesson of you need to at least have some inkling of what's happening with your money. I don't know. I find that silly.
It's not the first person to have it happen to him. I know Leonard Cohen was robbed by his manager, or at least one of his accountants or somebody. It happens fairly often because a lot of times you're dealing with artists and they're taking in, more money than in their childhood than they ever dreamed that they would be able to have. I imagine it would be overwhelming. I could see getting some other person to take care of it for you, but you gotta check in.
You gotta check in. But so the Great Wall of China was in a very subtle way, but it's rumored to kind of be him talking trash about Frank Weber. We could have been standing in the Great Wall of China, and so that there's meaning behind that song that isn't well known, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That beginning.
It's the verse.
Great.
It's really the verse. I think it's just poor songwriting, which I seldom, if ever, say about him. I just don't think that feel works for any band. Unless you're Elastica. Elastica can get away with it. Not him. But yeah, to go back to It's All About Soul. Was that a single?
Not that I know.
Okay, because I know that there's like a different radio edit on the 1997 Best Of album. Maybe it was released as a single for that, maybe. I don't know. But it seems like it should have been. It seems like a catchier song than a lot of... Not that these songs aren't catchy, but it seems like one that would have been well primed to be a single. But.
Well, it certainly does. And if you bring up that it's reminiscent to other musician Killers, etc., it kind of holds up in that regard to where it could be just brought up today.
Yeah, it feels pretty current. Whereas some of the songs on this album, as much as I love them, they still sound like early 90s.
Correct,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've addressed all of our songs, our most loved and most not loved, and in between. You said that you were struggling to come up with a song that you want to go out on for this episode. What's it going to be?
I think I'm going to actually go with Famous Last Words.
Okay.
Because I think it's just so topical with the fact that he has a new single coming out, and it is a great song in its own right. Like I said, my memory of the song is not what it is, and so I really thought that was a great song. So,
okay. That's an interesting choice to have it be your least favorite and the one you want to go out on.
Yeah.
You're the first guest to make that choice.
Well, again, it's so topical with the new album coming out, and I did not like the song because of the song itself.
Yeah.
I didn't like the meaning behind the fact that he wasn't going to make any more music. So he has so many albums, 12 studio albums, and they're all so great, and they all have a place in my heart.
What's your favorite album of his?
Without a doubt, The Stranger.
Mine too.
Without a doubt. Every single song on The Stranger album is easily recognizable and one of the ones I love.
If I could only listen to one Billy Joel album for the rest of my life, it'd be The Stranger. It feels like a best hits album in its own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually some really cool things that I need to learn about Billy Joel, and being a super fan that I can't even consider myself a super fan because there's still songs I haven't heard.
Yeah.
When we go back to his early years, 52nd Street and stuff, I'm listening to some of that, and I'm like, I only know the songs that were on the greatest hits in the future.
Right.
So there's still new music out there, new old music out there
That's
from
good.
1978 that's good that I'm not super familiar with.
Yeah, Cold Spring Harbor is a great album.
It's a great album.
Turnstile has some really good stuff on there.
New York State of Mind is one of the... That's a great song.
Yeah.
Turnstiles.
Yeah, or Turnstiles. There's some really good albums, but there is definitely an album or two where I drop out. I mean, there's a few songs that are good, that I'm into.
Are you talking about An Innocent Man? That
yeah.
album?
Yeah, I think I am.
That's a concept album that was very, longest time, very doo-woppy.
And that's it. Yeah, I don't like the doo-wop stuff. Which, that's part of what, well, I guess I can't say the Great Wall of China is doo-woppy, but it still has kind of like it's hokey, I guess. Billy Joel is someone that, again, to go back to my Facebook group, there are people that think Billy Joel is hokey and like cheesy, and you and I know that that's not true. That he is a brilliant songwriter. I mean, he's one of the great American lyricists, I think. He's able to cover so much ground and then still be able to have it framed in this wonderful combination of pop music and like almost classical music with the way that he constructs things. He's just a really talented guy. But every now and then, some of his stuff can just get into that level of hoke where I'm like, yeah, okay, all right.
And I always wonder, because absolutely, and it's recognizable right away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like right there.
Hey!
But is it because he tries different things? And sometimes it just misses. Mm-hmm. But the fact that he is willing to try something that maybe is outside of his comfort zone, I do love that. I love the fact that he's willing to do that. The Nylon Curtain was a 6th album. That's where you have Good Night, Saigon.
We met as soulmates on Paris Island. We left as inmates from an asylum. And we were sharp as knives. And we were so gung-ho to lay down our lives. We came in spastic like tameless horses. We left in plastic as numbered corpses.
Oh, that's such a great song.
I didn't think of that album more.
That's a great... Allentown was also on that album.
I know that song more from like singles.
Yeah, check out Good Night, Saigon. It's about kind of the Vietnam War.
I figured.
It was, oh my gosh, it was a great album. So he has so many. You honestly could do, no, this isn't the theme of this podcast, but you could do a podcast on every album that he has. So.
Well, you could do a podcast on Billy Joel and I'll be your guest.
I'll line it up. He won a Tony. Did you know that, Billy Joel?
No.
I don't remember for what, but it's just on the facts. I assume maybe it had to do with there's a Broadway performance about Billy Joel's song.
I feel like there was like he won it for Moving Out, which is Moving Out.
I think that might have been that Broadway.
Yeah, wasn't there like a Broadway thing of his? Yeah,
all his different music.
Yeah, Moving Out the musical is what it is. 2002, there was the musical that he did. It was just like his songs.
Yeah, I don't think he had anything much to do with it.
Right,
I think it was just his songs, his life.
Yeah.
So,
what was the name of that Disney movie that he did? He voiced the cat.
Oh, I have no idea.
Oliver and Company.
Okay.
St.
Yes, Oliver and Company also, he voiced a cat. It's like his only foray into. Let me double check.
That's cool.
Make sure that that's all accurate. Yeah, Billy Joel, Oliver and Company, in 1988. He did not win an Oscar for it, but if he had, he'd be on his way to what you got.
It does have 5 Grammys.
That's impressive. I don't see him winning an Emmy for anything, though.
That's true, yeah. Life and Times.
All right, so I always end the show talking about something kind of unrelated to what we're discussing, usually either something directly from the 90s or something directly to the person I'm discussing things with, which you knew this coming in because you've listened to the podcast before.
Yep.
I have on me a tattoo of 4 aces and some other random gambling shit, which I don't fucking play cards at all anymore. Maybe gin rummy or Uno here and there. I'm not a poker player. I don't gamble. You are a big gambler. You love Las Vegas and that kind of stuff. The reason I have this tattoo is because back in the day, you and a friend of the show, Chad Gibbons, lived in an apartment in Wixom that we used to call Gibowski's.
Gibowski's, yes.
And we would play a little bit of poker there. Do you remember?
Yes. Yep.
We played a lot of poker.
It was before the whole Texas Hold'em comeback, if you will.
Before Texas Hold'em came along and ruined everything.
To you,
to me. There's a reason why I stopped playing poker. Because I don't remember what year Rounders came out. I think it was 98. But it wasn't like that immediately made Texas Hold'em take over. But it wasn't long after that. So there was this fine window where I could get together with my friends at your guys' apartment. And there'd be like 10 of us, easily.
Not everyone was playing.
Yeah.
Some were playing
video game,
Dreamcast in the other room.
Right.
Some people were doing other
Right, but we'd have a table of dudes, and we would get real drunk and stay up very late, be very, very, very loud. It was always dealer's choice. We played every game under the sun that we could think of. You know, sometimes it was 5-card studs, sometimes 5-card draw, sometimes it was Texas Hold'em. Once Texas Hold'em came in, and like people started showing up that we didn't know, and they were like trying to like win money. Whereas before that, I could come with 10 or $20 and play till dawn. I was out like the first half hour of the night, and I'm like, this is not what poker night's about. And that's when I got really jaded on Texas Hold'em, the dick measuring contest. Anyways, my point being that before the game became, hey, let's take money from my friends, and it was just about, let's have fun with my friends.
Let's play a game.
Right. Yeah. We played all these different games. So walk us through these games that we used to play and choose your favorite.
Oh, wow.
You remember any of these games?
Yeah, well, we had the classic 5-card draw, but then you get into, we played a game called where everything was wild. Not everything, but let's go through it. We got deuces, trays,
one-eyed jacks,
man with the axe,
pair of sevens takes all. And that's the name of the game.
Yes.
Deuces, trays, one-eyed jacks, man with the axe, pair of sevens takes all. It's a 5-card draw game. Yep. And then we would say, deuces.
Yeah, it would be like, deuces, tray.
Pounding on the table, screaming the name of the, just singing, like chanting, deuces, trays, one-eyed jacks, man with the axe, pair of sevens takes all.
It was absolute chaos. And this is going on at 3 a.m. And inevitably how that game would end is you'd end up with 5 aces, and the asshole next to you has 2 sevens.
Great game. And then there was Iron Cross, which was like, it was kind of like Hold'em, where there would be a river, right? Only the river wasn't like the river that you'd see with Texas Hold'em. Everyone would get dealt 2 cards, and then there'd be 3 cards dealt in like a cross formation, right?
So you could go north to south or east to west.
Right. So the middle card was always part of everyone's hand, and then you could choose if you're going up or down, horizontal or vertical, to be the rest of your deck. So it's kind of like Texas Hold'em. That was a fun game.
That was fun.
And I think sometimes we play where the last card would be like a wild card, I think. Baseball. Baseball was a lot of fun, especially I like blind baseball. 9-inning blind baseball.
9-inning.
Dealt 9 cards, face down, can't see them. What was wild?
Threes and nines.
Threes and nines. Yeah. For some reason.
And 4s were like, it meant something else. Draw another card.
You could draw another card.
I don't remember.
4s meant something. You could reverse. I don't know. I don't remember what it was. It was something to do. 4s meant something. 3s and 9s were wild. Yeah, I think 4 you could like trade in for another card or something.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. But that was a fun one.
Dime store. 5s and 10s are wild. 5s and 10s.
So 5-card draw was 5s and 10s wild. We played Spit in the Ocean. Do you remember Spit in the Ocean?
I do not.
I'm so hoping you'd remember that one. I remember it was a game that I really enjoyed, but I can't for the life of me remember how it went. I just remember that like you got dealt cards, and then the ocean was like you spread the rest of the cards out like you're playing fucking Go Fish.
So it's one you'd find in Vegas, I'm sure.
Yeah. I can't remember the specifics of it, but I remember it was fun. What else did we play?
We did a few times that idiot poker where you just literally put a card on your forehead.
Yeah, idiot poker. Oh, you know what game I liked was Lowball.
Lowball was fun. Remember Lowball? Was really fun.
Whoever got the worst hand wins. So what was it? 8 high or 7 high was the best.
2-7 is the
2, 3, 4, 5, 7 is the best possible hand in that game. That was a fun one. Was there any others?
There were. I'm sure there were
so many others.
But it was kind of cool because people would. I mean, we invented games too, like the Deuces Trays, and that has to be. If you're asking me what my favorite one, it has to be that one because it just caused chaos. I mean, we're talking like for 5 minutes. We're not talking about. I mean, people are over there making drinks and slamming shit down and
screaming stuff. I do believe that was when the trumpet got brought out.
Mind you, we're in the middle of an apartment, and we're in the middle
so rude.
Apartment building. So like
rude.
everyone.
We were 19.
We got to a point where some of my neighbors would leave on that Friday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No one ever said a word to us about it, though.
That's amazing.
And that's nuts to me. Because I would be pissed if I lived in an apartment now.
I get mad if people drive by with their radio too loud now. I got a lot of fucking nerve.
Yeah, we're getting old, that's for sure.
Turn it down, you're going to make yourself deaf.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, I would love to play an old school game of poker again where no Texas Hold'em, or at least make a dealer's choice and maybe make it like once around, every now and then.
25-cent annual.
Yeah, just a good old fashioned fun way of playing, not about fleecing your buddy. I do miss that. Those were good times.
Great times.
It was a good time doing this with you, man. Thank you so much for making the trip out here. I really appreciate it. I love talking to you. I love talking Billy Joel with you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Honestly, this podcast that you're doing is amazing. It's listening to some music that maybe I had no interest in or didn't know I had an interest in, and then hearing snippets and then going back and listening to it later. Oh, man, it's been great. So I appreciate you doing that service for all of us.
Thanks, man. I appreciate everybody listening. So what are we going to do now?
We're hanging out with Christian. Buddy Christian's coming over. We're going to, have some beers and some laughs.
That's the plan. Let's do it.
All right.
Don't you just instantly love Steve? Everybody that knows Steve loves him. He's just a really sweet, really sincere, just fucking awesome guy. Most generous dude I know. Hands down. Great dude, and it means a lot to me that he came on the show. And I hope he comes back. And I hope you come on, listener, if you want to. I'm not trying to pressure you. Maybe you are looking for a reason to come on the show. Well, there is a lot of other boomer shit from 1993 and 1994 that came out, such as...
Seems like yesterday, but it was long ago. Jane, it was lovely, she was the queen of my night. There in the darkness with the radio playing low and the secrets that we shared, mountains that we moved, caught like a wildfire out of control, till there was nothing left to burn and nothing left to prove. And I remember what she said to me, how she swore that I didn't know now what I didn't know then. Against the wind, we were running against the wind.
So, yeah, I mean, this is Bob Seger's Against the Wind. which came out in 1980, but it also was on the Forrest Gump soundtrack that came out in 1994. So you could come on the show if you wanted to and talk about the Forrest Gump soundtrack. You could also talk about the Byrds, Bob Dylan, Fleetwood Mac, Jackson Browne, Creedence Clearwater Revival, of course. Whole bunch of shit. You know, that whole movie was pretty fucking tremendously huge in 1994. Those songs were all in the ether. They were like brought back in that era. So it'd be cool to talk about them with somebody, or any other album that came out in 1993 or 1994. Or maybe, you know, even if you don't want to come on, maybe a friend of yours, a family member that you think would be a good fit for the show. It's an idea. It's an idea. Okay, so that's it for now. I will leave it there. I will, as always, beg at the end of the episode when people have already stopped listening. Please rate and review. It's been a long time since I've had any upticks in the old star rating on things like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So it'd be cool. It'd be nice. It helps the show get more listeners, so it would be appreciated if you're a regular listener. And that's it. Thanks. Bye. '93-'94, a music podcast with Travis Roy, is a labor of love. It is not and never will be monetized. Please don't sue.